Alright, so we're just going to look at free spin, right? And then we are just going to look at all the various illustrations that come along with that. So when utilizing the free spin, right, to be able to access it in Excel, all you have to do is come down to the View tab. When you come to the View tab, you move straight to where you see the window, right? You see the free spin. This is it, right? This is the free spin, and it has a drop down selected, right? So this is the data we want to look at. There are some of the columns that are hidden, right? Because I just want us to have this particular view. Now we have the policy number. These are details of customers, right? Related to insurance or claim wise, right? Now when it comes down to the free spin, this particular section, right? When we select the drop down, you realize that we get to see, let me unfreeze this. When we select the drop down, you realize that we get to see free spin, freeze top row, and then freeze first column, right? So I'm just going to give you a quick summary of each of these three, right? When we say freeze top row, it means that the first row in your data sitting in your worksheet, right, will be frozen, to put it that way, right? So in that case, what happens is that as you scroll, as you move downwards, right, as you move downwards from the very top, you keep moving downwards, you'll be able to see the first row yet still. That's the benefit of that. Now we have the freeze first column. So with the freeze first column, just like it goes, it freezes the first column. So the first column stays static while you can keep moving to the farthest right, right? And then Excel counts your column from the left, right? So that's where your first column sits, at the farthest left. Now with this data, another tip is that when you want to select something like the freeze top row, right, I believe you are dealing with your data. You just have to make sure that your data sits from the first row, okay, moving downwards, so that in any case, when you get to freeze the top row, what happens? As you move downwards, the top row stays static, right? And you're able to see the various data, because especially if you're looking at a large set of data where most of them are filled with figures, as you scroll down, you're still able to see that, oh, this applies to claim amount, this applies to approved amount, this applies to amount paid. And that's the major benefit of that. So let's just test it out. So if I come to the free spin and I select freeze top row, right? So this is what we are seeing. As I begin to move downwards, right, you realize that if you see something, if you look carefully, you realize that the top row, that's row 1, is static, right? So we can see the various data that lies underneath while we keep moving downwards. So this is the very benefit of the freeze top row. It freezes the first row and then it allows you to see whatever applies in it. So you see, even with this large data set, as I keep moving downwards, I'm able to see that, oh, all of these figures may be applied to amount paid, approved amount, or claim amount. And that's just the benefit of the freeze top row. Now when you want to undo what we've done, right, just like you saw from the very beginning, you come back to the free spin, you see on free spin, right, you just select it, and then your data set is back to its start, or back to normal. Now when we come back to the free spin, we also have the freeze first column. So once we select this, right, like we said, so what you're going to have is that the first column here, which sits here from our view, is column B, right? That's the column that will be static, so that in any case, when I decide to move to the farthest right, what you see, you realize that only column B is static, because that's my first row from the view in the data at the moment, right? So at the end of the day, it freezes the first column, right, and allows you to see the various other data as you move to the farthest right. So there again, when working with data sets that are very, very large and you do not want to hide any of the columns, you don't want to make any necessary changes, all you want to do is that you just want to freeze that part so that you can see what applies. There are instances where your first column could come in handy in the sense of headers, right? We could have names of persons, we could have names of departments sit in the first column, right? And you're able to see the various figures that apply, basically if they are total summaries and so on and so forth in there. Now down to the last item, right? So here is the case. Let's just assume, let me unfreeze this. Here's the case that let's just assume that you would actually like to freeze the top row, and then you would also like to freeze the first column. So to do this, you realize that we cannot apply any of the second and the third. So we are going to have to apply something that is where the first option comes, the free spin, this particular one. So here we are just going to select a particular cell, and then we are going to come back here and select it and see the effect. So in order to do this right, if I want to freeze my top row and I want to freeze my first column, the ideal thing to do is to select this particular cell, C2. The reason for this selection is that having selected this, right, this is the intersection between both data sets. I didn't select customer name because it doesn't help with the intersection, right? But here, this is the data that sits in here, and these are the row data. So their intersection comes here at this point, which is C2. So if I select this and I come back to free spin, and then I select the top one, right? At the end of the day, you realize that as I move downwards, so we can see that the top row has been frozen, right? Now, when we come here as well, so let me just move like this. Then when we come here as well, you see that the first column has also been frozen. So that is just the key benefit, right? It just allows you to toggle across your data set. And so this is the great benefit of using the free spin. I believe this has come in handy, and it's quite something very straightforward. All right. Thank you for your time.